Well, hello guys, welcome back. Today's god of the day is Thor, and before we go into other associations, he's definitely for me my god of craftspeople. Like if you work with your hands, if you work with the arts, he could definitely overlap with other gods there, but for example, this is the 13th time I've tried this video, so he's definitely the god of work at your craft until you get it right, regardless of whether your craft is with your hands or it's mental or, whatever it is. He's the god of do it until you get it right and be a craftsman. He's definitely a god that I find and sense that he takes pleasure in beautiful craftswork, like working with your hands. Obviously, if you work with, like a hammer and chisel, so you do woodworking or you do metal crafting or leather work, or no matter what it is, if you're doing it, whether it's writing or anything else, because remember, this is deep thinker, this is highly intelligent deity. He's there with you and he will encourage you to do your best. He's actually upset if we do not do our best. I didn't say just went off. I said he's upset and he's disappointed. He wants to see us do our best in everything we do, but to do our best because we enjoy doing our best, not to make it a drudgery or a chore, where Odin might yell and push you. Thor is more gentle in that sense and will encourage you and bring out your best. Um, Obviously, he's a charmer with the ladies. All the ladies know it. And he can have, different relationships with everyone. To me, he's like a big brother, but he is very charming and women very much love him. He is the god of the hammer, and yes, it's a phallic association, and that is why in one of the stories he has his own hammer laid in his lap, because that is how you got ladies pregnant back in the day. You brought out Thor's hammer, and it's also why they would hallow everything with it, because it was a holy hammer, and they would wave it around. So they were running around, waving this phallic symbol all around and blessing everything with it. Ha! Get it back here. And it was not a shade to our ancestors. It was, yes, this is a phallic symbol. This is Thor's hammer. And if you look at some of them, they're obviously a phallic symbol. It's like you could not miss the association. Not to the point of, like, say, a Freyr statue, but it's obviously, a protective wording thing. And, to our ancestors, this phallic symbol was something very special. It had magical powers and it could frighten away bad things. Probably because, the way the male anatomy works, he's gotta be very committed to it, you know? Uh, he howls a laughter backer, but it is a phallic association. So obviously a god of fertility. If you want to get pregnant, ladies, if you're trying to have a baby, you can definitely see Thor. I'm getting Snickers back here. Gardening, farming, anything. He is a god of farmers. He is literally the god of farmers. So anything to do with farms he loves. He absolutely goes to pieces for little baby animals, just like Freyr. He and Freyr can overlap a lot because they're both fertility gods, and they're gods that love being at home and having good food and everything else. But Thor also has that adventurer side too. Take off and go explore and bash some giants in the head, because Thor has anger management issues in the stories. Thor's stories are actually awesome, and I don't know where people get the idea that he's not, the deep thinker, as we call him, because, it's always a giant thinking they've got the better of Thor because he's this big, huge, hulking, very much of his bloodline is Jotun, that comes out, and he's huge, and he's got this flaming red hair and beard and these fiery red eyes, and he's standing there with his hammer, and he's huge. And they think he's dumb because he's so big, right? That stereotypical dumb jock, that was what people thought Thor was, and they would do something. And Thor has his daddy's brain on board. You cannot forget that. So, there'd be these countless stories where a giant would hide behind a pillar and Thor would be like, okay, and just throw his hammer and it would smash through the pillar and it would smash the giant in the head and kill him. He's the god of don't challenge him or you're royally fucked, because he will come after you. He's also a god that, if you anger him, he will demand proper payment. Like the story with his goats, where Loki, being the little shit that Loki is, decides he's going to get the gods something out of this after all. And he tells the kid, hey kid, break the leg bone, eat the marrow. But he told us not to. Fuck that. Break the leg bone. So the kid breaks the leg bone, and Thor goats up in the morning with the hammer because it's also the hammer of resurrection. And the goat doesn't look right, and Thor's pissed off, and Thor's like, "Guess what? I just got 2 new thralls. You kids are coming with me, or I'm killing your whole family." Okay. So he's definitely known to have a temper, but keep in mind he's associated with thunderstorms, he's associated with lightning and everything else. He's associated with all that raw power. Now he has, people would say, either gauntlets or gloves to be able to handle Mjolnir, and I know I just fucked that up, but he will have these, actually have to be able to have them on to be able to handle all that raw power. So he has all that raw power, but he has to shut up Loki. Loki's helping. He has to have the ability to conduit all that raw power. He also has a belt of strength. If he wasn't strong enough before, he's stronger now. We know from the lore that he can grow to a huge epic size. If you think he's big now, he can grow bigger. Shut up, Loki. Or, he can look just like everyone else. So if Thor were walking the streets today, he's not going to look like Thor. He's certainly not going to look like Chris Hemsworth, even though that might amuse him. He's just gonna look like a regular dude. He's going to dress up regularly. He's not going to attract attention to himself. And that was weird. It was like somebody touched my hair or something. The gods are very excited because he's the champion of the gods. He's the champion of humans. All humankind, not just a select few. Thor would have me say that. I don't speak for the gods, but he's the champion of Midgard. All of Midgard, not just a little teeny tiny part of it. Thor in general loves humans and anyone can work with him, but you've got to be honest. I'm not saying that Thor can't deceive people, but you've got to be honest if you're going to deal with Thor. And you've got to have a goal in mind. What are you working towards? And if it's a worthy goal to Thor, he will help you. I've also experienced that he can be a god of healing. We don't have anything in the lore of that, but definitely if he can resurrect, the goats with his hammer and he blesses with fertility, is not much of a stretch to say that he's a healing god as well, though that's not in the lore, so don't screech lore at me. And he's a very protective god. He's a deity that people very much like because he didn't demand human sacrifice like his father did. But there's enough of his father in him that you should respect him. Today we experience Thor in, this has nothing to do with the films. We experience this Thor that's warm, gentle, and loving, especially women do. And he's nurturing, and he's like a big warm bear hug, and you're like, how could anybody be afraid of him? Well, he can scare you witless if he wants to. This is Thor. Some people say he was beloved, and some people were like, he was beloved, but his people were a little scared of him because Thor, quick-tempered Thor. So we don't know if he's just mellowed out, or Jesus Christ, Loki, stop helping. Or it's I'm getting laughter. Or it's one of those things of we just have a different culture today, so we experience Thor through our culture, and Thor's fine with that. If Thor wanted to frighten and intimidate people, he would. But as he's told me, he said, what's the point of you being frightened and intimidated? Then you won't trust me and you won't work with me. And Thor is the first, of the Norse gods who will come. In general, Thor and Loki, though sometimes other people get other ones, and welcome you in and welcome you into the pantheon. As I've told you guys before, and we're not ashamed on this channel, decades ago, not 2 days ago, decades ago, he and Loki reached out to me and my brother through the Thor comics, and we were living in a very abusive home, and Thor definitely picked my brother. And Loki and all the other Norse gods were involved too. Somehow my brother didn't know because he literally had to sneak away from the house to try to learn about these gods. And he protected us as much as he could. He and Loki, and I'm sure the other gods as well. So he's definitely a god that, you have to treat your family well. If you're not treating your family well and you think you're going to deal with Thor, you're going to get knocked on your ass. And I can't make it clear enough. Thor will defend his people. And it is not, by the way, a racial thing. If you're a good person, you're a Thor's person. It has nothing to do with the color of your skin or where you come from. So no matter where you come from, if you're a good, upright person, you can work with Thor. Thor is the one to go to if you can't work with, say, Tyr or Forseti, for example, if you don't have a close relationship. Tyr will see that things are set right. Tyr is the one, Tyr. Odin will God damn it, the gods are helping. I'm sorry. Thor is the one that will see the things are set right. And it's like all the gods are really excited. I'm feeling like this frantic energy. Thor is the one that will see the things are set right. He's the one that keeps the Jotun in check. And remember, giant is actually like a really bad translation. It's more like we know today, they were another family of gods. And our gods just didn't like them very much. Because they were more destructive, wild, primal gods that just went around destroying stuff and didn't give two shits about humans. And Thor is the one that will keep them in check. He will not go and slaughter them all. That's not the idea. But if they come and they transgress, Thor will be the one to keep them in check. So overall, he's a really fantastic deity to work with. And I the when I work with him, sometimes it's really relaxing and it's really good, but he's also a god that the other Norse gods get really excited because this is their hero and their champion, and they're all extremely proud of him, especially his daddy, especially his uncle. If you work with Thor, you may end up working with Sif. Some people end up working with his entire family. Right now, we're at I will sometimes work with Lady Sif stage, and sometimes not, but he's really good natured and he's really smart and clever. He's the god that will invite you into his home, like, he has a VR temple. He's be like, come visit me. And he'll invite you into his home. And I'm sorry, guys, by the way, if you have VR, I have to have the temples closed because people can label anything for our gods as hate stuff. I'm sorry, but I have to keep the temples closed or they'd be open to the public. Um, he'll invite people to his temple or to his home or to wherever and come in and have, drink and everything. And he's the clever one that if he wanted something, then, once you're eating and drinking and feasting, he will, spring the trap. Not in a malicious way that his dad would, and you in trouble now. But in that clever, much more gentle way that Thor has. He does love you, but he is going to show you he's smarter than you. He's not anywhere near as showy as Odin, but he is proud of his intelligence and he's proud of, the way we set up his VR temple. And he loves machines. He loves cars. Oh my fucking god. He loves cars. Any kind of machine, he loves them. Any kind of technology, he adores it. He personally does not take offense, I think, in the Thor movies. He doesn't think that there's anything offensive because, as he's pointed out, if they just presented the text exactly as it is, most people wouldn't get into it. If they make it popular and kind of water it down and change everything around and make the gods space aliens, Thor doesn't really care because the people he's going to call are eventually going to go and bother to read a few stories and be like, this god's 10 times more awesome than the comic book character. So, he's a very good god for that. And he's a god that would defend anyone. So, there have been things where, pagans have defended, and rightfully so. They've defended people that are under attack, and Thor would definitely be one of those gods to be there with his hammer. He would be the first one to defend people. I can't say this enough, it has nothing to do with the color of your skin or where you come from. We have evolution on this planet, and we had, plenty of species that were hominids. So gods only know what's in any of our ancestry. So before we get too high and mighty, especially if we're European, you could be part Neanderthal. Ooh, ooh, ooh. So, Lucky Specker, don't do that. They were stupid. But you know what I mean. Eventually, if we go back far enough, we're all primates. We're monkeys with anxiety. So don't get too big on yourself. But he's a good god. He's kind. He's caring. He's loving. He loves food. He loves music. He loves dancing. I don't necessarily buy into, you guys know, and I don't kind of mean disrespect white people voodoo, but if he's a god that comes down, I don't buy into that because I think it's too easy to take advantage of people, guys, because obviously sex is often involved in a lot of these possessions. And the first rule of voodoo is, oh fuck no, you never have sex with voodoo on Loa because it can just be tantamount to rape. It could be somebody faking possession. That's why I hold these so-called possessions in low regard because it usually almost always involves sex. And I'm like, we're not a sex-shy people, but it could also be tantamount to rape because anybody can fake possession. So, if you believe in that, fine, but just, be aware, have some street smarts. Um, Obviously, he's a god that will collect many god spouses, or human spouses or whatever the fuck it is. And I can never remember. And he's like, "Huh." And he is a god that's very wonderful to have in your life. I get an idea that he does have his own brand of magic that always pops into my head. I get the idea he has his own brand of magic, but he's not going to be as flashy about it as his daddy is, but he's definitely cunning and smart. Keep in mind, this is a god that, he got fantastic presents from Loki after he threatened him and threatened to hurt him and break every bone in his body. And then Loki got Mjolnir and got Lady Sif here because Loki was drunk off his ass and thought it would be funny. Loki's like, what? So he will threaten Loki and keep him in check. I wouldn't recommend you, and people have said this before, don't use him as a bouncer. He's going to resent it if the only time you call on Thor is when Loki's being a little shit, which is sometimes a daily basis. But he is the one god that Loki's like, okay. And Loki starts to behave, at least a little bit. You could also call on Sigyn for that too, because Sigyn ain't having none of his shit, and she will come and keep him in line. But in general, Thor is the one that he can keep Loki in line. But as you can see, as I'm struggling with these videos, if the other gods get wound up and they're excited because Thor seems to be the favorite of the Norse pantheon, everything goes sideways. But he's your defender. We're actually doing a candle for him today. I know it's Monday, but any day is Thursday if you need to call on him. It's one of those things where he will definitely be there when you need him, so don't worry about it. And I'm getting a nudge for, and I don't speak for the gods, but I'm getting a nudge for, doing your studies, anything you've got to work hard for. Thor would be a good one to call on. Maybe you have a closer relationship with Corsetti or Tyr or somebody else, and that's fine, but you can definitely call on Thor for whatever you need. Obviously, another god where people will say, well, can Thor, since he's always so strong, can he help me at the gym or whatever? Be serious about it. Be willing to do the work. He's not going to let you overextend yourself and wreck your body, but, don't be trite and come to him, because if you prove yourself to be foolish and silly, Thor's eventually going to start ignoring you. And if you really keep pushing at Thor, there is that point, just like with his thought, he'll merely send you on your way, and you won't forget it either. Really good god to work with. I would never go out of my way to deliberately piss him off, but he has an extremely long fuse. He can get hurt. He can get hurt, especially when I'm fighting with his father and we're fighting over things like, his father attracts a lot of hateful people. So does Tyr. Unfortunately, so does Thor. And he got hurt in that instance when I was fighting with his father, but he's also knowledgeable enough to look at the history and understand why people would have trust issues with his father or have trust issues with Tyr. But Thor's been the one to point out that, the gods can come down and defend us, but the gods aren't going to sort our political shit out for us. It's not that the gods don't care about injustice or people using their name the wrong way, but, human problem, human solution. Thor would happily love to hit people with lightning, but he's a defender of mankind. He's kind of tied up. But if you ask him for justice and to help you, fight and to, have a more inclusive paganism or heathenry or whatever you practice, he'll do that. So, I hope you guys enjoy that. Overall, he's a real sweetheart. He really is a sweetheart, but he does have that side to him that, if it's going to be war, Thor's going to give you war, and it's going to be an extremely brief war. I mean, it's just going to be sad. But if you guys like what you see, like, comment, and subscribe. Oh my god, we just went on just about forever. See, I knew if we worked at it, and Thor's like, I knew if we worked at it long enough, we'd get it. So I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.